Hey there, everyone. It's Jody Sutter of the Sutter Company, and welcome back to this month's episode of Just Ask Jody Live, my LinkedIn Live monthly series. We are going to be talking in a few minutes. I'll be inviting on my guest today. We're going to be talking about agency positioning, really interesting agency owner who has a second generation agency, built it into one of the top agencies in the Northwest of the US. So I think we're going to have a lot to talk about, and I welcome your questions and comments. Please participate. That's what makes these LinkedIn Lives so special, is when you are asking your questions and we're getting to respond to them. Before we get to our guest today, though, I just want to promote a couple of things. I've got Megan in the background, and sorry, I'm throwing her a loop. I said I wanted to promote one thing, and I lied. I want to promote two things. But the first thing I want to let everyone know about is that I'm going to be offering, this is the second time I've done this, I'm going to be offering a masterclass in June. It's called Prospecting with Purpose. I offered it last year for the first time, and it was really popular. I think one of the things that agencies have a lot of challenges around is promoting or getting a prospecting program underway, up and running, and doing it in a way that feels both manageable as well as sort of generous and not too salesy. So we're going to give you some frameworks and process for getting your prospecting program up and running. We're going to drop the URL to the landing page where you can go and learn more about it and register, which I hope you do. Right now, we've got an early bird special going on for the next couple of weeks. So this is the opportunity to either sign yourself up or a group at your agency at the lowest price possible. So check that out. Look in the comments. You'll see the URL for the landing page there. Another reason why I wanted to offer this as well is I think we're entering into a period of a bit of uncertainty. It's April 15th, 2025. By the way, happy tax day for all of you guys that are getting your tax returns in today. But it's 2025. We're in a bit of a period of uncertainty here in the US, especially with our economy and with some policies coming down from our national leadership. And I think a lot of us are just wondering what that's going to do to the advertising business. Of course, advertising tends to be a lagging indicator. So I think a lot of us are just sort of holding on. And it reminds me a little bit of the feeling in the world about 5 years ago during the COVID pandemic, at the very beginning of the COVID pandemic. And what I did is I offered to folks who are feeling like they just needed a bit of a conversation with an advisor, no strings attached. I offered a free 30-minute call, and I'm doing that again. So we're going to put that graphic up as well. Like I said, no strings attached. If you're just starting to wonder what the heck the next best step is as far as filling your pipeline, growing awareness for your agency, closing business that's in the pipeline, I want to offer you to create to book a free 30-minute call with me. You got the QR code here, and we will also put into the comments the link for my scheduler, my calendar. Find a time that's good, and I look forward to talking to you. I hopefully I gave a lot of value 5 years ago during COVID. I know I actually got a lot of value hearing from you, talking to you, and helping to come up with good solutions and approaches that were going to allow you to take advantage of a difficult situation. All right. So on to today. Today I have Jaime Ekman. She, as I said, she's an agency owner. She is the CEO of Stoltz Marketing Group, which is one of the top agencies in the Northwest. They're based in Boise, Idaho. We've got a lot to talk about. Let me give you a little bit of background about her first, though. She took over from her father a number of years ago. Stoltz was started by her father, Ken Stoltz. And before she joined the agency, though, before she went back to the agency, she got a bit of experience, especially on the client side. So that's what I love, agency leaders who have that experience, also not only with agencies, but on the client side, because it comes in with such an interesting perspective on what's important to your clients. So she got some experience, especially in the CPG world, came back, and as of 2018, ran the agency for her father, and I want to make sure I get this right, and is now one of the top women-owned and women-led marketing agencies in the Northwest. So I'm really excited to have Jaime here today. Thank you for joining me. How are you?
Hi, Jody. Thanks for having me.
So we had talked before we went live. We talked about a few things, a few topics that we want to kind of dig into today. I think the first thing, let's maybe, if it's okay, go right to this where we are today in this feeling of maybe a little bit of uncertainty. And I follow you on LinkedIn. And by the way, everyone, please follow Jamie. She's very active on LinkedIn, has a lot of really generous posts about what it's like to be an agency leader in this world. So tell me a little bit about how you and your team are kind of managing some of this economic uncertainty that we're all wondering if we're going to be experiencing for a while.
Yeah, it's obviously very interesting times. We're doing a whole lot of things. And I will just say that, the uncertainty that we're experiencing today, at least for us, is coming on the back of a pretty soft 2024 as well.
Mm,
So I felt like there was a lot of uncertainty leading up to the election. We kind of
yeah.
thought that would dissipate after the election, and it did somewhat. And we're actually experiencing quite a lot of activity in the new business world right now, but it's kind of hard to say, as you said, what that looks like moving forward.
Yeah.
So we're just trying to be really proactive, not only, in terms of looking at every expense that we have, but
Mm,
really focusing on just aggressively pursuing new business, making sure that we are developing our existing client relationships. So kind of all the things that we can control, given that so much is outside of our control right now.
yeah. I think that's always the best advice. Control what you can control. Tell me a
Yes.
little bit about as you ramp up, you mentioned proactively pursuing new business. Can you tell me a little bit about what that looks like for your agency?
Yeah, and I know, we'll likely get into what that looks like down the line, but I think we're an agency that's been around for 28 years.
Mhm.
Um, and I would say for most of those 28 years, like many small agencies, we have relied on referrals. And so it's, a lot of incoming leads. And a couple years ago, we decided to take a much more proactive stance on new business. And then I would say within the last 12 months, um, even more so, and put more
Mm,
structure behind it. And so I think, it's really important to have a leader for new business, but it also
mm,
can't be a one person job. And so that leader needs to
yeah,
have the skill set and the ability to really rally a team and make sure that they're motivating a team, especially when, new business is often the first thing to drop when client work gets busy. And so
yeah,
we have put a lot more structure in terms of, we meet weekly or biweekly. We have an endless amount of documents that kind of track our leads, our prospects, where things are in the pipeline, which proposals we're working on, which RFPs we're working on. So it's got a lot of structure behind it. We also do have a
yeah.
CRM, but I would say
Yay.
still a spreadsheet game right now.
Okay. As long as you have one, it amazes me that there are agencies in this world today that still are resisting the use of CRM software.
Mhm.
It's almost like, can you imagine if you didn't use accounting software or
Right,
project management software? But anyway,
right.
that's not a battle I'm going to fight here today. We've got other things to talk about. Um, you know, what you said about how important it is for new business to have a leader, I couldn't agree more. My basic philosophy, what I sort of built my business around, is this idea that for a small agency, and I typify a small agency of anywhere between 5 and 55 people. I think you guys are like right in the middle of that.
Yeah, we're about
That
20.
for a small agency, the top leadership, the owner, the CEO, the founder, they are the best business development resource that agency has, but they're not the only business development resource that they have. But it's got to start with them. And I think it also, I don't want agency owners to feel like, oh, it's such a burden. But it's more like, okay, now that we all acknowledge that that's the best way to do it, let's figure out what your strengths are so that you're actually building a plan around what you know that you do well and that you're going to be able to maintain. So I'm curious, in terms of new business strengths for you, I'd love to hear a little bit about how you decide, is it more marketing focused or is it more sales prospecting focused? Is it a balance of both? How do you pick and choose, especially when you guys get busy?
Yeah, I think it is absolutely a balance of both. My strengths, Yeah, it's a balance. I definitely find that I get more traction with sales and prospecting than some of my team members. And I think that that truly is just like the CEO and the leader reaching out often gets more response than someone else. And so we have tried many different things in terms of putting different people in charge of new business. And to your point, most of our success has been when I've been involved. And that's not to say that I'm even any good at it. It just, I think it is in terms of my ability to rally the team and motivate the team around what we're doing and prioritize.
Yeah.
So like we've tried many different things. In the end, I have become the leader of new business again, and it's working well. And again, it's a team effort. It's got to be. It can't just be me. So I think getting that full team approach has helped a lot.
I want to ask about that, but first I want to go back to the prospecting. So I think sometimes agency owners will feel a little hesitation that just feels foreign to them. But I also agree. I think marketers tend to take a small agency or almost any agency more seriously if they feel like they're getting a call or an email, a contact from the owner or from sort of that top leadership.
Mm-hmm.
You said that you're finding that to be the same for you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I agree. I mean, prospecting, the name doesn't even sound great. Like it's just not a very comfortable thing for
Like
most people
digging
to
for
do.
those gold nuggets.
Yeah. Unless you are have sales in your title, it can be really uncomfortable. And so again, like many small agencies, we haven't prioritized prospecting over the years. But again, given where we are just in the world right now, it feels like that is something we can control, and we can get a little bit more proactive with prospecting. And I also think that allows you to have outreach with the kind of clients that you want to have instead of waiting for it to come in the door and come to you. So, yeah, we're doing much more of that.
Tell me a little bit, if I could, I'd love to hear a little bit more about, again, how you approach that. Do you find, I'm trying to make it not quite so open-ended, but a little bit more about those conversations. Do you find that when you do get a prospect engaged, that you're able to have a conversation that's more about sort of strategy and problem solving versus sales?
It definitely depends. I mean, I think the very nature of prospecting means that there's going to be a whole lot more no's than yeses or silences
Sure.
than anything. But the ones where I feel like we have really done our due diligence and we know who we want to reach out to, and we've done research on who we're reaching out to, we have been able to get some really solid conversations around strategy and where we think that we can come in and be a solution provider. So I do think it's preparation and research, though. It can't just be a kind of a spray and pray kind of thing.
No, and I think there's also because there's limited time, limited team.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I think that I also think that you can probably because I see this in myself, full confession, that you can also over prepare, you can hide, you can avoid by over preparing. But but in general, I agree with you to have smaller set of prospects that you have a good sense of their background, their needs, much more important.
Yeah.
Exactly. I want to go back to the team, because I really love what you're saying about how the team is also all involved, that you're the leader, you're the sort of the boss of new business, if you will, but everyone helps. How do you tend to divide up the responsibility?
Yeah, it definitely, varies based on the situation. But our new business team is composed of myself, my COO, director of accounts, and then we have an account manager and a media representative. And then creative is usually pulled in based on the opportunity. So they're not necessarily part of like the day-to-day new business team, but they're very much involved when we do have an active opportunity. And sorry, I'm kind of I'm forgetting the initial
also
question.
the team. Yeah, I'll again, a little bit of background. Another phrase that I really hate is this idea of like new business is everyone's business.
Yeah.
And so I guess what I see, and I don't think doesn't work terribly well, is when that philosophy is interpreted as everyone gets to do a little bit of everything. Like everyone has their own little new business fiefdom, where an account director will be in charge of both prospecting, as well as running a pitch here and there, as well as maybe
Mhm.
like finding time to write a blog post or a guest article in a trade magazine. And I think what you find is that then typically you're asking people to do things that they are not well suited for. And I think that person who's really good at maybe going out and developing some expert content is probably not the same person who's really good at connecting with a stranger, either in a room of live people or over email. So I'm wondering, is that the kind of philosophy that you use, or how does that vary in your agency?
Yeah, yes, thank you for kind of the nudge on that. So I think we do try and lean into people's strengths. So as you mentioned, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. So both Tracy,
Yeah.
my COO, and I would say are pretty responsible for thought leadership. I'd love for that to
Hmm.
trickle down more into the agency, but again, given bandwidth, I think it makes most sense for us to kind of be leading that
Yeah.
kind of marketing effort, if you will. And then we typically, we meet biweekly as a new business team, and that's where we kind of evaluate opportunities, get a
Yeah.
decision on whether, different opportunities are go or no go. And then we kind of split it up. And so often, someone on the team will be leading the actual proposal effort. That's where we'll decide which creatives we're going to pull in, if there is a spec creative
Yeah.
component. And we just kind of divide and conquer there. We have all been contributing to kind of prospecting and lead development. But again, in those new business meetings, that's where we're kind of dividing and conquering, seeing who's the most relevant or who might have a point of view when reaching out to someone. So it is
Yeah.
kind of an everyone thing from that new business perspective, but it's very split up and still pretty strategic, I would say.
I think you're also doing something that's so important, which is gathering the group and talking
Mm,
about it.
yes.
That's another mistake I see, is the sense of like, hey, you go do this. And by the way, like, come back to me next quarter with a status report,
Mhm.
as opposed to,
Yep.
and then no one really feels the freedom to go in and say, okay, here's the thing. I think there might be an opportunity here. I don't know how to get into this business. I'm not sure what both the conversation should be. And um, yeah, to bring the leadership team together to have those conversations, especially if people who are involved in new business who maybe aren't the most at the most senior level. And I
Mhm.
encourage that. I think, if you've got someone who is less experienced at, say, building relationships, but has the personality and the drive and the interest, then like, bring them in, let's get them going, but then also mentor them, help them with support and some training.
Yeah, agree. I think
Yeah.
frequent touch bases are so key, because, as you know, client work comes first, and new
Mhm.
business drops off quickly if you don't keep that
Yeah.
momentum going.
Yeah. I want to pivot a little bit, because something else that we had talked about before we went live is, and something that I think we had promised the folks that we'd be talking about. And by the way, I think I just realized I'm just going to go to the comments real quick. Okay. Nope. Okay. I thought I saw someone sending in a question. Send in questions, guys, if you're watching this live. But I want to talk to you about positioning, because that's actually what we promised the folks we would kind of delve into a little bit today.
Mhm.
So we were saying before, you and I, positioning for a small agency, for almost any agency, is really challenging. And you currently are undergoing a positioning exercise. Would you be willing to share a little bit about what that's like and what has been challenging for you? And
Yes.
maybe how you've overcome it?
Yeah, absolutely. We are going through this right now and have been for a long time. So
Mm,
it is the biggest challenge is time, of course. There are so many other priorities. Like I just mentioned, client work always first, and then
mhm,
proactive new business development is
mm,
pretty much second for us. Positioning is obviously a huge part of the new business development effort, though.
yeah,
So they're one and the same, and they both take a lot of time, and so just that prioritization can be really difficult. But we started looking at this very seriously a little over a year ago. So the beginning of
mhm,
last year, we worked with a consultant to get us kind of going on positioning. And since then have taken it inside and are working on getting across the finish line. But
yeah.
I will say it's not totally ready for rollout, and it's still a work in progress. But yeah, I do recognize that it's key for new business development.
So, the role of the outside perspective, were you able to see things that maybe you hadn't, that sort of things that were right in front of you that maybe you hadn't seen clearly? Tell me a little bit about what the outside perspective did for you. with the
Yeah.
outside consultant?
Yeah, I think it definitely helped us solidify some things.
Mm.
The outcome, once we got to the outcome, was like, well, duh, we knew all this, right? And I think it would have taken us a whole lot longer to get there had we not had that outside perspective. So
Yeah.
um, it definitely just helped us articulate and come to understand what we already knew about ourselves, which is, the role of a consultant in that kind of area. So I definitely recommend getting that outside perspective, because I think when you're too close to something, as we know with client work too, when clients are too close to something, they need that outside perspective. So it's the same thing for us.
Right.
Um,
Right. Yeah.
yeah.
And I always thought, I refer to it often as the sort of the hidden gems that just need to be polished. They need to be identified and polished. And yeah, I find that I I rarely find, when I'm working with an agency like yours, that I'm finding something entirely new. It's always something that is either there but not fully seen because you're too close to it, or a way to combine certain attributes in a way that no one had ever looked at before, that
Yes.
sort of creates uniqueness. Although
Yeah.
I like to stay away from unique. I think unique puts a lot of pressure on us.
It does.
Yeah, yeah, you can differentiate yourself into oblivion.
Yep. Exactly.
The other thing, the other thing also, I think one of the ways you guys positioned yourselves, if I am sort of interpreting a little bit, is as a woman-owned business, and you've got your Women in Leadership podcast. And tell me a little bit. Would you tell me a little bit about how being a women-led agency has resulted, how that has influenced your positioning, and how that has influenced how you pitch new clients or prospects?
Yeah, that's a great point and a great question. I will say, our positioning has not been strong as of recent years, which is why we're undergoing that effort.
Yeah,
However, I think our voice has been very strong. So it's kind of, it's helped us get to this point. It's helped us grow a lot.
yeah,
So as a women-owned, women-led agency, we have really leaned into what that means for us, for our clients, for any other stakeholders. So we like to think that it enables us to just look at business differently and do business
mm,
differently. Take care of our team as humans inside and outside of work. So we've done a lot operationally in terms of um, updating policies to be the best they can be for our employees. And then we've used that also just out loud to the world to make sure that they know what we're doing for our employees, because we believe when we take really great care of our employees, they take really great care of our clients.
mhm,
So again, I can't say that we've nailed our positioning over the last couple of years, but I think our
yeah.
voice has helped us in that growth effort, being a full service agency.
Yeah, yeah. I think these days being a full service agency is challenging because,
Mhm.
and I think it's why it's so important that you're going through that positioning exercise right now. It's the full service part. It's what an agency like yours does best, and yet it's also really hard for
Yeah.
your audience to understand, unless there's something else there that allows them to say, "Oh, yeah, that's what makes that person different, or that agency different." I often tell an anecdote. Matt Ryan of Roth Ryan Hayes, search consultant, years ago, he did a talk for the 4As, and it was sort of a little bit of a peek inside their process, to select agencies, to help hire agencies. And one of the things he said was that at the early part of the process, he before they even contact an agency, they pull together, one sheeters on maybe 20 different options, 20 agencies. And
Mhm.
at the bottom of that, this basic information, where they're based, what their main clients are, that kind of stuff, who runs the agency. But at the bottom of the sheet, there was a line that said, "Agency is known for," and then there was a blank line. And
Mhm.
so the agency wasn't filling that in; it was the search consultant. And so
Yeah.
I often challenge agencies to say, "What do you want? What do you want? What do you want in that line? What do you want
Yeah.
that? How do you want that filled in?" And I think things like, your focus on being a woman-owned agency, it creates this narrative, and I think this is where you have to be really careful as well. Like, what are you
Mhm.
saying out there that's going to create a narrative, and how do you control the
Yep.
element? You can't control the narrative, you can't control what's in someone's head, but you can control what they are interacting with. Um,
Yep.
and I'd love to
Agree.
hear, yeah, your thoughts on that, and what you guys do to control that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I will say, back to the positioning, because that is our important next step, is making sure that we're tightening up
Yeah.
that and then launching that in a very thoughtful way. But you and I had talked about kind of this progress over perfection mindset, and
Yes.
that has really been our goal for 2025, is to kind of get out of our own way in terms of
Mm.
leaving perfection behind and just working on progress. And so as part of our positioning effort, it is pretty darn close to final. We're just not ready to roll it out. And so what we have done is really focus on the most impactful pieces where we can kind of put some of that new positioning into. So, our new business proposals, our capabilities deck, some of our case studies, website language. So we're starting to put that into the places that we're using the most, and then,
Yeah.
making sure that that'll roll out in a larger way when we're ready.
Yeah. What's the feedback been like so far?
So far, really good. I mean,
Good.
we're feeling so good about the way our new business proposal and capabilities are looking. And so again, now the challenge is finding the time to make sure that our website aligns with all that. So
Right.
absolutely a work in progress, but we're getting great feedback on it so far.
Another thing that you're bringing up that I think is really important is the sort of the rollout, that
Mhm.
the making the decision around what that positioning is and sort of a
Yeah.
basic strategy is part of it. And then there's kind of the enormous and not always sexy part of the process, which is just, yeah, updating the case studies, updating the website. How are you talking about it in the proposals? So has that been, how have you managed that so that you actually are rolling it out?
Yeah. Part of it has been involving more of our team.
Hmm.
This started at the leadership level in terms of working on that kind of higher level positioning language.
Yeah.
But we've looped in our management team and now really the whole team. And that's kind of the next step, is making sure that we're involving the whole team in terms of what this looks
Yeah.
like as we roll it out. So as part of that, it's also, creating our own work back schedules and deadlines and all of those things that we would do for a client too.
Yeah.
And obviously that's where the challenge comes in, because some of those deadlines get pushed as we need to for client stuff and new
Right.
business stuff. So that will always be a challenge, but I think getting some of that in place so that you are treating yourself more like a client.
I would also imagine that if you're starting to roll it out or experiment or test it in things like proposals, I think one of the advantages there is that a proposal is a deadline.
Yeah.
And so you can start to, you're sort of forced to say, how does this work? How does this feel? What are some of the issues that we didn't anticipate that we'll need to figure out? Um, so I like that. It's almost more of a, I guess to use a like development terms, it's more of an agile
Yeah.
approach than a sort of waterfall. That I think
Yes.
fits well with the progress, not perfection. Like
Mhm.
let's try this. Let's see how it feels. Let's see what the client says. Let's see if it wins us in business, and then we can
Exactly.
roll it out.
Yeah. And I am
We
seeing one question here
Yeah,
that
yeah.
kind
So
of aligns
Sam, hi.
with that.
Yeah. So Sam, hi Sam, good to see you. Sam Archibald asks, do we have any tips on knowing when you found the right positioning? Is it a gut thing, or does it need some form of validation? Thanks, Megan, for putting it up there. So
Yeah.
I'm going to have you take that first, if it's okay.
Well, I think this aligns with what you were just saying. And I don't know if this is a good answer or a bad answer, but the fact that
Mm.
it has been such a work in progress for us has allowed us to iterate and find out what is working, whether that's through our
Yeah.
new business proposals and winning business, or, getting team feedback. On the flip side, I would say I think the danger of that is that it can water it down a little bit if you're waiting for too much feedback on it.
Yes.
But I would say for us, it has been beneficial, I think, to kind of test and iterate as we go. Ultimately, I do think it has to be a little bit of a gut thing at the end of the day. But again,
Yes.
with some of that validation along the way.
Yeah, I think you're right, and to try it out, and I do. By the way, I've seen that too, the watering down of things, where
Mhm.
maybe you'll land on something really strong, and then you'll try to throw a few more things into it and adapt it, and all of a sudden
Yep.
it's a shadow of its former self.
Yes. Yeah.
Sam, I'll add that. The other thing that I find is useful in my approach is to also look at as much at the audience that the agency is trying to serve, that sort of ideal client profile or set of profiles. What I find is that when an agency can focus more on how they solve the problems and what those problems are, then the positioning almost slides into place a little more easily. And it's less sort of the internal, what do we say about ourselves, what makes us different, and more about, oh, like, oh yeah, we solved this problem, and here's the whole messaging strategy around it. I don't know if that's an approach that you took also, but I found it's worked for me.
Yes. Yeah, I agree completely. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Sam. So we're already at the bottom of the hour, and I'm always careful of one, taking too much of your time, because as an agency owner, you are busy. I know that. And, and also the folks who are watching this and listening in. Is there anything, I guess one of the things I wanted to maybe end with, going back to a little bit to this moment that we're in right now, but also looking back over the last 7 years since you took the agency over, how has your approach to new business evolved, and what are some of the big lessons learned as you've sort of found your place in running this agency?
Yeah, I think what I said earlier, which is making sure that there is a leader in place that has the ability
Mm,
to rally the team and get that support, so that it's not just one person. I
yeah.
think that's key. I also think it's making sure that you're not just relying on referrals and that you do have a proactive and organized new business
Hmm.
strategy. And I had one more. Oh, this is something I just heard on a podcast recently, and I can't cite the source, but it did stick with me, which is that if you are just relying on some of those referrals, you're going to get the same kind of business that you currently have, which doesn't actually
Hmm.
support your growth. So that kind of proactive new business strategy is super important for getting the kinds of clients that will support your growth, and not the kind that will
Yeah.
keep you at the size or the model that you are currently. So I thought that was interesting.
I think
Um,
that's a really great point. I think it's also that it also indicates to me that you're willing to. I think you have to know where you want to go, even if
mhm.
even if that change, even if the goalposts change a little bit. But without
Yeah,
knowing where you want to go, then you absolutely get stuck with that
yeah,
referral. I think you can also use referrals to greater effect when you have that goal, because then the same network that was maybe reacting with, sending you opportunities over the transom, you can
mhm.
then say, hey, here's how we're changing, here's where we're going, and
Yeah,
here's the change we want to affect. And if you know
yes,
others, and that's where you can sort of reignite that referral system too.
yes, exactly.
um but I think those are all really great points, and it's been, I think we've known each other now for about a year or so, and it's
Yeah, I
been
think
such
so.
a pleasure
Yeah,
to
thank you.
get to know you and to watch Stoltz grow and evolve. And I think you've got a great business, and I can't wait to see the positioning fully roll out.
Thank you so much. Yes.
Thank you, James.